अस्सलाम वालेकुम व्यूअर्स। डॉक्टर वाहिद हारून आपकी खिदमत में एक बार फिर अपना जो हमारा रूटीन का जो प्रोग्राम होता है, आज का प्रोग्राम जो है वो ख़ास है बच्चों के हवाले से। जो हमने वर्ल्ड चिल्ड्रन डे सेलिब्रेट किया 20 नवंबर को, तो उसके हवाले से इस सिलसिले में जो है आज का फॉर्मेट थोड़ा सा मुख्तलिफ है। वो इस तरह से कि हमारे साथ जो गेस्ट हैं वो अमेरिका से हैं, डॉक्टर कानी मैसिंगर, और उनके साथ हमारी कन्वर्सेशन जो है वो चलेगी इस पूरे प्रोग्राम में हर तरह से, यानी इंग्लिश एंड उर्दू बोथ। और जब उनके साथ बातचीत रहेगी तो वो टोटली इंग्लिश में होगी। आपके कमेंट्स को हमेशा की तरह जो है वो इसमें एड्रेस किया जाएगा। तो कीप पोस्टिंग योर कमेंट्स। और विदाउट फर्दर डिले, let me start the program with our guest. So, good evening, all of you who are watching the program. Thank you very much for joining this show today. So, we have this special program related to World Children Day, and we have a wonderful guest. She is, I must say, most of the time of her time devoted to children's parents training, and especially she is an author. And how she became author, and each and everything we will definitely ask to her, and she'll explain each and everything. So let me invite Dr. Chanie Messinger. So we have Dr. Chanie Messinger. Good evening, Dr. Chanie.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm well, good, and welcome to show, Dr. Chanie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm just so grateful to see you again. I know it's been a
Yeah,
little bit since we last had a
yeah.
conversation.
Mhm. So we had, last time, I think a year or so, we had a conversation about the COVID, and let's have a little bit, uh, you know, updates about the COVID there. And we have improved a lot of things because of vaccination, and the proper public awareness. It plays a major role, the awareness of related to any type of health issues. So how is COVID there at
So,
your side?
same with us. I think there's been a significant improvement. Things have
Mhm.
gotten significantly better. It's almost to the way it was pre COVID. Most places are open.
Mhm.
Most individuals are like feeling good and doing well overall at this point.
Okay. So, uh, well, Dr. Kani, as we both have decided to have some, you know, uh, a lighter note conversation, not, to be palatable and, acceptable by parents. So this is going to be a simple conversation about how to train our children in such a wonderful, high-tech era. And we have same format what we used to do in the COVID time, that we entertain comments of viewers. So viewers, you are most welcome if you ask Dr. Kani anything, and we definitely try to address your uh, comments. So to begin with, uh, childhood. So would you like to share uh, some, good memories related to your childhood?
Definitely. So, I grew up in a very religious Orthodox community, and one good memory that comes to my mind is being out and about with a lot of boys and girls in my
Mm.
age, just playing hide and seek, playing basketball, football, and just kids being
Mhm.
kids and just appreciating being silly, being fun, and just being out in
Uh-huh.
nature and just appreciating being able to do really well at
Mhm.
sports, to be really, really fast, and just having
Mhm.
conversations with other young, like kiddos that are like-minded and just appreciating getting our energy out in a very fun, healthy way. And I remember growing up not really, especially from, let's say, 3 till 12 years old, not really being outside. Like once I like got home from school, I would do maybe really, really quickly my homework and spend the night like outside until it got dark out, just being with other kids and not really having access to really any technology until I got a little bit older.
So, you know, if I concluded that the childhood should be like a party time most of the time, do you agree with this?
I think childhood should be letting a kid be a kid. Let a kid tap into their innate knowing, their innate being, their innate worthiness through things that they enjoy. And for me as a kid, I really enjoyed being out in nature and playing with other kiddos. And for some other kids, they might really enjoy piano, or they might really enjoy coloring or drawing or reading or writing, and letting kids kind of discover and discern for themselves my likes and my dislikes. And rather than sometimes I know like today in society, and when I'm working with some of the parents that I'm working with, sometimes it's like, okay, my kid needs to go to sports at 4 p.m. and then at 5 p.m. they need to go to a reading class. At 6 p.m. they need to do karate. And it's like, when are they having that chance for that exploration, for just that free play, maybe to just be outside or to just be sitting and baking a cake at home? It sometimes doesn't offer that opportunity when there's like highly structured that's set into play.
Yeah. So highly structured plan is, I think, sometimes not sounds practical for children, especially. So as parents, we do consider that, you know, the properly structured program would, give some benefit to our children. But as you mentioned that the structured program most of the time is not particularly entertain, children. So what do you think that this year theme of World Children Day is to, inclusion of every child, inclusion in any type of knowledge and, awareness, and, there is a format of educate your child in a, gimmick way. So how do you take that stance?
I would say that every child is unique and individualized. I would say every human in general, we all are special, but what makes us different is our uniqueness. And every child has the ability to discover their uniqueness by allowing them to just be. Yes, structures, activities could be great to a certain degree, as long as there's that interest that the child's having. If there's not that interest, then that's where that challenge can come into be, and not allowing that child to further express that uniqueness.
So, Dr. Kani, let me, change the topic and, a little bit of your experience as author. And viewers, I would like to explain that Dr. Kani's first brief is especially about kids. And now we are, fortunate enough to have her to ask about the details of what made her to write and, to elaborate such type of feeling in Breathe, Breathe, Breathe. So your view related to your first book and your experience about as author.
So what brought me to write this book as a kid, so yes, I appreciated being out and about and having a really good time with my friends. That's one of the key things that I do remember from childhood, that positive component. Yeah, as a kid, I would get really caught up in grades, really get caught up in how I looked and how I act, who my family was, who I was. And I was a very shy, quiet, timid kid, to the degree I was afraid to really speak, and I was very afraid to be seen. I was almost the child that was really afraid of her own shadow. And a book that I wish I would have been exposed to as a young kid, something that I wish I would have known, is mindfulness meditation. And specifically, that I have the ability to connect back to my breath, even if I'm feeling shy or upset or unseen or scared or whatever it may be. Something that I wish I have learned, that 7-year-old, 8-year-old Chanie would have loved to have learned, is that I have the ability to connect to my breath over and over and over, especially when I'm experiencing uncomfortable emotions, sadness, anxiety, frustration. Am I still here? Okay, there we go. Especially when I'm experiencing uncomfortable emotions. So hence the birthing of this book came out of a place of something that I would have wished and I would have loved to have read at a young age. Hence I was like, okay, how can I make that impact for future generations, for young children 2 to 8, 2 to 10 years old, so that I can help parents plant that seed in their young little ones, so maybe they'll be a little less shy, a little bit less anxiety, a little bit less sad, because they're realizing that the child can take that charge by connecting to their breath in a very fun, simple way. And the book that I put together, like you mentioned, is entitled Breathe, Breathe, Breathe. And a key premise and a key component with this book is that connecting to the breath, whether I am inside or outside, noticing if I'm having loud thoughts or quiet thoughts, that I have the ability to connect to my breath, to connect back to my body as a way to help me be present. And it's really ultimately, especially in the times that we're living in now, whether you have children or not, we all was a child and we all have the ability to learn sometimes things in a simple way to help us, ground us, and connect us to the right here, right now.
As you mentioned that we always, consider whatever we do to, as a legacy to our future generation. So for future generation, most of the time in my country, we most of the time, too much worried about their primary startups, primary education, when to start the education, and when to send him or her to the school. So your opinion regarding the school going age, what is the ideal age to send this child to school?
So I think it takes me back to the part that developmentally 0 to 7 is the primal age in which a child has so much neuroplasticity. The brain has the brain is like a sponge, and there's the ability to learn and take in so much information. Once the child is past the age of 7, it's not to say that they're not able to, they are, but the plasticity over time does reduce. So when it comes to kids and when to start school or when not to start school, I think it really is individualized, and it really depends on that child and that need and the home environment. Is a parent able to be with the child and cultivate rich experiences, museums, parks, play dates, mommy and me, or parent and me, or caregiver classes? And if they're able to, then I would say to hold off and wait to go into school till 5 or 6. However, if the parent is not, the caregiver is not, the circumstances in the home is not ideal, and the parent is not able to cultivate this rich environment, then I would say 3 or 4 years old might be that ideal starting point or starting time for the kid. And if a child is experiencing disabilities and they're having some type of diagnosis or conditions, I would say the younger, maybe ideally the better, because planting that seed and that neuroplasticity piece, especially early on, can make it more probable and higher chance that the child is able to further develop as best as they can based on their uniqueness and their individual needs.
So I think there is a common norm among all families that we do spare time for our child and try to have more family time and the storytelling and something like this. Would you like to share your view regarding the impact of such type of activity in family, especially with the 0 to 7 age group child?
So I think family time is very important for the child. They're seeing how the primary caregivers are interacting. They're seeing how the siblings, so they're getting that social component. In addition to that, they're getting the opportunity to learn. Let's say it's reading, or let's say it's a board game, or let's say it's even watching a movie together. Having that family time can significantly have that impact, not only on interpersonal, but also on cognition when it comes to knowledge and thinking and problem solving, just cultivating that dialogue and that opportunity for the child to observe their caregivers, observe the older siblings, the younger siblings, just is like a win-win opportunity at every end. And it's, I think, really beneficial and really important for kids. And maybe during that family time, there is baking or cooking, or maybe the parents are sharing their trade of mommy does this, daddy does this, and just having dialogue or having conversations and doing activities together that match where that child's at, I think is really brilliant and really spectacular, because it's that seed from 0 to 7, what we can plant. Obviously, not overwhelming and not overstimulating, but it's this dance between the child and this parent of, is this working? Is this not working? And it's not only the parent and it's not only the child, but ultimately it does really come down to the parent, because the parents have, you would think, more of the skills, more of the knowledge, and the child is still like figuring it out. But it's the parent noticing that temperament, the different characteristic. Is my child an easy go, slow to warm up, or more of a difficult? And matching that when it does come to that family time as well is important.
Yeah. One more thing which I would like to have your view on, that in 0 to 7, most of the time I've heard and I'm experiencing it as well, that daddy and mom both are as their ideal personality for child, and whatever parents do, passively that child absorb it, learn it, and reflect it. So I want to have your opinion regarding this, that how would you take this situation, that in front of especially our child, how one should behave as
So
parent?
as parents, how to
Yeah.
behave when you're in front of your child. So I would say be open and be honest, simply, with what's happening and what's, going on in one's world, but then being mindful that the child is a sponge and discerning of what topics are appropriate and what may not be appropriate. But yet at the same time, I think it's also important. And I know personally, like I grew up with, let's say, parents having conversation and a little bit argumentative. And now I think there's a big push of like, people are saying that you should, like, as parents, like you should never have an argument in front of your child. And I'm so like, no, like have that argument, obviously not screaming and shouting mom and dad or the caregivers at one another. Absolutely not. But more of allow the child to see, yes, mommy and daddy do get upset and we do have arguments, and it's an appropriate conversation of like dialogue. Okay, mommy's upset at daddy with his behavior because blah, blah, blah. Daddy's upset at mommy with her behavior, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes adults need to communicate, and this is what mommy and daddy are doing to help figure it out together, and how we can meet in the middle, or how we can, problem solve together. And I think that's an important piece, that the child doesn't see mommy and daddy are always like so good and they're not having conversations or they're not having arguments, because realistically that's not the case. So I think it is important for the child to see that, not shouting back and forth and not yelling, that's not what I'm teaching about, but more of the parent taking that step and having nice dialogue so that the child can see, and the parents can have dialogue with the kid to see, like, mommy's upset, daddy's upset, that's okay, and we're going to figure it out and we're going to work on it together to see what we're going to do about it. I think that's important.
One more thing which is very important, that is how do we move the child among our extended family, and how do we socialize among friends. So do you think that socializing of our child has got some importance in passive learning? So meeting with other people, sharing with ideas, and to groom the expression of the child, socializing has got some importance.
I agree. I think that, yes, socialization and extended family is important. However, it's going to go back to that individuality and the child's temperament and the child's innate interest. Are they interested in having conversation with the extended family or friends? Because some kids are a little bit more shy and a little bit more introverted and reserved, and some kids are more extroverted and more outgoing. And it's the key piece of parent maybe exposing the child to the situation with the families and the extended family and just kind of letting the child be. And if the child is constantly saying, like, I really don't like this, or this is too much, then the parent's taking that step back a little bit and seeing, okay, maybe there's too many people. Maybe next time with just cousin from my husband's side of the family or my side of the family, so it's not too much, and tweaking it and seeing it so it can match that child. And sometimes it could be releasing that because the child might not be ready, or the child might not be interested, or the child is overwhelmed, or it can go the other end. The child is really interested and they're appreciating it, they're enjoying it, they're a social butterfly. So it's going to be this like dance of that individual need for that child, and it's really ultimately going to be that parent like figuring out. Sometimes it might be, yes, the child is so interested, and then sometimes maybe not so much. And I think as the parent, like respecting where the child's at and allowing the child to be authentic to how they're feeling. And yes, the parent can serve as that model and they can influence and they can have conversation, but to a certain point, it might be also just releasing and allowing the kid to kind of just figure it out.
Yeah, totally agree with you. One more thing that is, most of the time we have observed that, because of the education model, the different school systems, they are more focused on, the actual learning of everything, experience anything. So we can even, arrange such type of environment at home. So learning with parents has got, more importance, especially during 0 to 7, age group. So in 0 to 7, according to the scientific research, there is a more absorption, more learning from child, and from child side, and child most of the time does not consider anything right and wrong, directly absorb. As you mentioned, that child, initial age is just like sponge. Whatever you want, your child easily absorb without considering the impact of that thing in the his or her personality. So behavior of parents, I think you share your opinion that very important, and be natural in front of child especially. Okay, let's talk about something, homework. Most of the time, in my country, school system has got some homework, you know, and child has to sit with the mom and finish it by applying the different logics, and sometimes some assignment given by school to complete it with your parents. So would you like to share how to increase concentration span of 0 to 7 age bracket child, because it's very difficult, because most of the time a child uh, gets saturated in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or sometimes less than that.
Yeah.
So your experience in that situation?
Yeah. So it leads me, I'm thinking what comes to mind as you're asking this question about homework and attention span, especially for young kiddos. What can parents or even teachers or anyone working with kids do to better like help? And part of my occupational therapy training and part of a little bit of like research that I've informally done is the importance of movement. So we know the child needs to complete their ABC, their reading, their writing, math homework, whatever it may be. I think prior to them engaging in that tabletop activity, that homework activity, having them do some type of movement, maybe some running, some jumping, some hopping, followed by maybe some deep pressure massage, can allow them to, when it comes to sitting at the table, can potentially help with that attentive piece, because sometimes we need to get our body moving to be able to sit and to be able to learn or do with the task at hand. Another thing that comes to mind when it comes to homework, we traditionally think we're doing homework, it needs to be a table and a chair. And I always like to debunk and break that a little bit. Does a
Yeah.
child really need to sit at the table, sit at the kitchen table, the dining room table, or in their room with their caregiver to do the homework? Or can we do homework in a different way? So what do I mean by that? So potentially, rather than child sitting, maybe the child can stand and do their homework instead. Maybe the child can go on a rug and you have like a nice board on the floor so that they're able to write on top of the board while they're on their belly. Or maybe they're sitting on their just ball and they're sitting at the table that way. Or maybe potentially they can go outside if the weather's nice and we're just going to sit under the tree. We set a timer. You have 10-15 minutes to complete this writing assignment. When the timer rings, that means you can go and play. And if you're not done, play 5 minutes. Then we're going to come back and regroup and revisit again. So sometimes we can maybe get caught up that homework needs to be done, table, chair, but we can do some movement before to wake up our muscles, wake up our body, sit down and attend that way, or even have the child do homework in a fun, silly way. I'm laying down on my back and I'm holding the pen up in my ear, or I'm sitting on a ball, or I am going outside if the weather permits, or if someone's able to go outside with me. So we can kind of like shift that, and we're still getting the homework done, we're getting the learning done, the child is with that parent or their caregiver too, and we're making it fun at all different ends.
So, this is a good, flow of, conversation so that the parents get benefit out of this conversation. Now, the next step is the hidden potential or hidden talent of child. Most of the time, I, come across such type of, family considering that how to craft the hidden potential of my child, how to know that whether he or she is interested in such type of activity and what to do for that. So any particular formula would you like to share with the viewers that how to craft the child, especially in this early age bracket?
I would say kids, and really anyone that's under the age, I think research say under the age of 24 and even 28 years old, that our brain, their frontal lobe is not fully developed. So even more so, the younger the child, the less development that has happened in the brain. 1 second, and if you think about young kids, 1 second they love the piano, amazing and spectacular, and the next day, no, like, I don't like it, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm loving karate and I want to do it, and I'm doing it 2-3 weeks, and I'm 6-7, and I'm like, no, thank you. So it's just when a child is mentioning that they're interested in a certain sport or an activity, it's kind of like take it with a grain of salt, especially if they're under the age of 10. It's because they're still learning and they're still growing and they're still developing. And as the parent or the caregiver, not getting attached to, oh my gosh, my child is going to be the future like guitarist or future like scientist. It's just noting that kids' interests are constantly changing, usually most of the time, and it's stemming out of this place of like curiosity and interest for this like exploration. So as the parents, it's kind of like take things a little bit with a grain of salt when it comes to investing into things, unless the child is really showing that interest, then maybe putting that, but just having that flexibility.
Okay. So
the kids just having the flexibility to allow the child to kind of just like decipher, and as the parent, the caregiver, not getting attached to my child's going to be doing da 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 da, because they're still developing. And if we really think about it, the frontal lobe is really not fully there until like in the late 20s. So that's what I like to say when speaking about this. And if there's a specific formula or way to go about it or to do it, I think it's just go with the flow and cultivate this dance between parent and child, and decipher, and as a parent, don't attach too much. And if the child is really showing an interest and there is that opportunity for them to fully develop or further develop, becoming, that piano or that karate or that basketball, and if the child is interested, then I say the parent, go and help and support as so. But if the child is really not, it's like releasing and let's see what else is out there. And sometimes it might be just to release and let the kid be, to discover, because some people don't discover that purpose or their love till they're older and they're not meant to discover that until that point in time.
Mm-hmm. So, it's some type of bilateral learning, child as well as the parents, they both learn together. The
Yes.
parents usually learn how to, make the child, at comfort level to learn anything, and, child definitely, enjoy that company. Especially, I must say that the involvement of parents, uh, uh, convince the child that to take part actively in anything, especially parents, you know, I would say that they must spare time, uh, you know, whole soul involved in the, you know, uh, your child, pure, activity and training. So, keeping this, with another activity, that is, storytelling, grandma's storytelling, bedtime storytelling. So, how would you take this activity, as especially author of, first your book is especially related to children. So, how would you take this storytelling activity? Um,
I think storytelling and is spectacular and is allow children to tap into their imagination. It's allowing for them to start to understand sounds and letters and words. It's allowing them to being able to identify different pictures inside books, or even if it's not, let's say, a book per se, that the grandparents or family members are saying stories. It's just allowing for processing, reflecting, understanding, questioning, discerning, and it just allows the expansion for the cognitive skills,
mhm,
excuse me, which are like foundation for higher level learning when it comes to learning more complex reading or writing or math or science or even learning a language. And that's starting to plant that seed of that curiosity, reflection, and processing, and expanding that imagination piece for the child as well.
mhm. So you mentioned that book reading, uh, you know, increase the imaginative power of any child. So let's talk about something about how to select the content of, specifically this age group that we're discussing. Uh, the content, or select the best book for this age group, so that child would learn good out of this selection. So, would you recommend any particular type of books for such age group?
I would say for young kids, books that have pictures.
Mhm.
I would say books that have topics related to emotions, self
Mhm.
regulation, eating healthy, sleeping. How do
Mhm.
you treat other people? How do you interact with other people? Books that have
Mhm.
messages and meaning behind it, I think, is really beneficial for kids this age. And yes, it's nice to have a cartoon book. I know here in the States, kids are very into Peppa or like Coco Melon. So it's nice
Mhm.
to also sometimes bring the learning of what they're watching in their movies or TV shows in a book as well, so that they're able to see like another way that a show can be expressed, another format that can be utilized.
Uh, I was, reading some article related to uh, Rome. So in Rome, they, use gesture while talking. So you might have, experienced this, that they most of the time have each and every word with expression. So
Yes.
uh, word with expression. Uh, I think it's a good way to teach your child that have word with expression. So your comment on this situation, that if we adopt that Rome uh, gesture style of conversation, so how would you consider this for the child education?
I think that's important because it's bringing together this, not only this verbal communication, but that nonverbal communication. And I think it's 80% of language is that nonverbal, and that gesture can really create this like 360 approach of bringing everything together, not only like the language, not only the cognition and the thinking and the problem solving, it's a combination of everything that's allowing, I think, the child to further process and understand the sound of the dog says rough, or this person is angry, and the person that's reading the book is saying in that tonality, that again, that nonverbal communication piece, so that the child is starting to decipher and understand what's happening in the story, and then they can be related to everyday life. When someone's speaking in a very deep, low tone voice, maybe they're angry, or someone is speaking more in a lower tone voice, maybe they're sad. So they're able to kind of take what they're hearing in these stories, take these nonverbal communication cues, and then start to learn how to be able to generalize it, not only to that story, but also to what's happening in their world.
So as we select, different books for bedtime story and, grandma storytelling. So another, the modern and high-tech, condition is that online content for, for children. So would you like to share any particular, criteria where you select this may, develop that, child's anything appropriately, and this is not relevant, and this is irrelevant. So is there any criteria? Because you might be agree with me that high tech and online, each and every material and content, it try or dragging us to the gradual growth to exponential growth of mind. So I'm giving you two parts of one question. One is related to how do we select the content, and do you think that this actually involve in dragging us from gradual growth of mind to the exponential growth that is most of the time machine does.
Right. So I think, how do you bring up two really great questions? How to decipher, how do you know if the content is good or not? And I would say, generally speaking, the websites that I like to use usually are .org. Usually .com are websites I'm like eerie with and I need to discern. But usually, like in the States, .org or .edu are usually pretty up here when it comes to that rule of thumb. And like you're mentioning, or like implying, all content online when it comes to education or it comes to games or activity for kids are definitely not created equal. So key things that I want to look at when I am going online is to see who is the creator of the content, what is the background of this individual, and maybe I'll do a little bit of research to see what is their training, to see, okay, would this potentially be beneficial that I'm going to recommend to a parent to do or to utilize with the child. Because there are some games and there are some things that are really beneficial. Like in the States, a website that I really appreciate is iCanLearn.com is a really great website for visual perception. There's another really good website for learning. It's highlightkids.org. There's freeboardgames.org. And these are spectacular games that really teach foundational skills that are needed in our everyday life. That's usually like how I'm deciphering and looking at different online things. I typically sometimes recommend, but I'm primarily not recommending online resources when it comes to educational games per se for parents. A lot of the times I recommend like toys or items, or I'll recommend it's usually toys or items that I'm recommending. Every so often educational games, but I'm like a little bit weary because I know the addictive components that screen time can have, and I know as it is, a lot of kids are exposed to TV and movies, and I try not to recommend games per se, but when I am and where parents are interested, I'll always say like edu.org, and I have 2 or 3 websites that I do appreciate and like, but a lot of the times I'm like a little bit weary with it because of the addictive component that I know screens and games can potentially have.
And one more thing which is very important, that before searching such type of site, parents should have some idea about the creator of that website and whereabouts and their educational ranking as well. So, if we get to know the ranking of that size, so it would be easier for us as parents to decide what to select for our child. Okay, but as we decided to, because you have very busy schedule, so uh, it's been, more than 40 minutes now, and time flies. We, uh, haven't considered it that it's more than 30 minutes, and uh, we plan to have it so half an hour conversation. So before compiling this show, I would like to uh, request one thing, if you could share such link with us on, so that I can give it in description. And secondly, as guest of honor, what would you like to give us as take home message for our children, and especially on World Children Day?
First off, thank you so much. I'm just so humbled and grateful for you and our connection that we have over the past, I think, 2 years at this point. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It just warms my heart. So thank you. I would say something that I would like to leave with as it relates to Children's Day, and it's really going to relate to parents, and I think it will have a significant impact on parents and really the children. Yeah, anyone that's really working with children can benefit from this message. Sometimes someone saying a teacher or another provider or another family member is going to say, oh, do this or try this or see if this is good or this is not. And there's a plethora of resources out there that, like, so many, almost too many, that can be really overwhelming for you and I to like go through or to look into or to say. And I would say for parents, for them to, especially females, to connect to your heart, because sometimes there's a lot of information, and if something is not feeling right for your child, tap into yourself, connect with that innate intuitive knowing, and trust that that's the direction or the space to go. Sometimes there might not be the words, and there's just this knowing. So for parents that are in this place of like uncertainty about doing something or not doing something or trying something or not doing something, I always say tap into your heart. Even if everyone's doing it or no one's doing it, if it's something that in your heart is feeling appropriate and that's going to potentially help yourself or your child, I say connect and tap into that.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful message. And with this, viewers, allow me to end this show. And it's been great pleasure, Dr. Chanie Messinger. If I recall, previous program, at that time you were, the scholar of your PhD degree. So yesterday when we had conversation, I forgot to, share about the viewers that you finished your PhD program, I think a year ago. Yeah.
It's not a PhD. In the States, or with the degree that I have, it's a postdoctoral degree that I have. It's a little bit different. It's similar yet a little bit different. The key difference with the PhD and a doctorate is the schooling and the amount of time. That's a key difference with it. And there's the educational part of a postdoctoral, and a PhD is also a little bit different. The doctorate that I have is more clinical and research based.
So good to know the difference between your degree and the PhD program. So we all hopeful to see you again with another very informative and very education wise very education enriched sessions sometimes in coming sessions. So this is, I've just resumed the try to make it in a regular way so that we can share whatever we know, and we allow other people to share their experience on such forum. So thank you again, Dr. Chanie Messinger, for accepting our invitation. And from my side and from your side, we are glad whenever we invite you, you accept that invitation and share your you know wisdom with us. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Because we are about to finish the day, and it's uh, uh, near to midnight, and at your side, it's afternoon. So best of luck for your rest of the day. And viewers, uh, with Dr. Chanie Messinger, thank you very much for attending this program, and uh, you know enjoy it. Uh, Hopeful that you have a wonderful night and sweet dreams. And from Dr. Kani and from myself, Allah Hafiz, bye bye. See you next week with the next, very energetic and amazing session. Thank you.
Thank you.